So seeing as we're approaching a Blender 5 release, I figured it's about time to talk about this issue that I've been having for quite some time, and I believe it's first started when Eevee Next became the default. But as you can see here, I've got the material preview open on the default cube. We've got this kind of jaggy shadows, and this is in Blender 4.1. Over here in Blender 4.5, you can see it appears to be using some softer, more dithered shadows here, which is ray tracing and global illumination, I'm assuming by default. And of course it's the same over here in Blender 5. And the main issue I've been having, if I just come back to 4.1 here and I come to change the color and I move the color wheel around, and it's relatively smooth. Obviously the material preview doesn't update in real time, and when it does there's a very slight hitch, but it's actually not that bad. And I can just close this material preview, and of course if I go to move this, of course it's super smooth, no issue whatsoever. I'm screen recording this at 60 FPS and there's no issues whatsoever. And of course the little icon here, it eventually does update when you stop moving, but it's not like trying to update in real time, and it generally doesn't cause too much of an issue. Now if I come over here now to 4.5 or version 5 and I try to do the same thing with that window open, and it is just completely unusable. You cannot move it whatsoever. It's like 2 frames a second. It's completely chunky, completely stuttery. It's completely unusable. And so now if I go and close this preview and then I try to move this, it seems to be smooth at the start, and then it just starts chunking. As far as that little icon, the little material icon starts updating, you can see that little gray window there as it's starting to load its new preview, and it just starts to chunk it again. So it's smooth for a bit, then it starts chunking, and basically that's been going on for, like, I've tested it as far back as 4.3.2, and I believe it probably goes all the way back to 4.2, basically whenever Eevee Next was introduced. But if I click off of the material tab and I just click on something else, then I can happily move this thing around and there's no problem whatsoever. So it's basically those tiny little icons. I'm assuming maybe they're using ray tracing as well in the background or something, but it's completely unnecessary for something like a little icon, and it just completely chunks this thing. It's like you cannot move it whatsoever when that's running, and it causes that constant stuttering. So like here it's smooth and then it starts to stutter, and it starts to jump around, and it should be moving in one smooth motion, but it's jumping around. So basically it's more of a nuisance than, I mean, a major problem, but it is definitely a nuisance because you basically have to consciously click off. If you want to make any material adjustments, you want to do it in real time, you have to click off of material properties, which in a way is somewhat counterintuitive. You should be able to keep your material window open as you're making adjustments. At least the icon, you know, like that should be available to be seen without causing any stuttering. I can understand maybe you can minimize the window preview if that's going to be an issue, but like I said, back in 4.1 you could still have the material preview window open. You can move this around relatively smoothly. There was a little bit of stuttering, but it was not nearly as unusable as 4.3 and higher. So I'm hoping that maybe something could be done about that. I'm not sure how that could be. Obviously the render engine default has changed, and I guess that's probably the biggest drawback there for why these material previews are going wacky. But maybe if there's a way of switching back to this kind of, you know, generic shadow where it's not having to use full ray tracing and stuff inside the preview window, maybe that would help to mitigate some of that. Anyways, thanks so much for your time and for your consideration.